Good afternoon. Thank you. This is the 30th edition of the live Q&A session. So this is where I try and help you with any problems you might have with starting strength training as an older adult. So my name's Chris. I'm a physiotherapist in the UK and the creator of Never Told to Lift. And I'm trying to inspire as many of you to get started with strength training, and you can see the benefits that it provides. So today I'm going to be talking about the following things in this kind of next roughly half an hour. So it's going to be tips for struggling with motivation to get to the gym and how you can stop yourself talking yourself out of it before you even get there. Struggling with balance during split squats, that's a form of lunge exercise which I'll show you in a second. And then does supersetting save time? So I'll explain what supersetting is, why I tend to recommend some form of supersetting to people, particularly even if you're getting started, although it does sound that might be for the more advanced, and actually how you can, as a beginner, take advantage of that to make going to the gym less daunting. So I'll be covering those three that I've had kind of prepared throughout the week, but I'd also love to answer any questions that you might have that whilst we're live on this live stream. So if you are watching this live, and this started at 12 o'clock on Wednesday, you should be able to see a chat feature on YouTube on the right hand side. So if you just leave your question in there, that will pop up to me and I will do my best to answer that either on today's live session, or if not, then certainly on another week's live session, which are always on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock. If you're watching this after it's finished, then please still do use the comments. I do look at them and check them every week, and then I use those questions to prepare for the next week's live Q&A. So yeah, please do leave comments if you're watching this afterwards. Really trying to get YouTube and please our algorithm to kind of spread this video out to more people and see if we can start to help more people with their strength training journey. So one thing that really helps, if you could just take a second, is click the thumbs up button underneath the video. And if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, then please click subscribe as well. It should just be in the bottom right hand corner of that YouTube screen. And those two things together will kind of help spread this video out to more people. So I'd really appreciate that if you are able to do that. But yeah, to start with, let's get rid of that. And this first question came in, it's actually on one of the Facebook groups you may or may not have seen. So I've got a Facebook group that I set up. So it's the Never Told to Lift Workout Accountability Group. And as you can see, it's grown really well. So we've got about 1,400 people in that group at the moment. And it's a really friendly group of like-minded people who are all doing some form of training, whether that's strength training or other forms of workout, and they just want to share their progress with people, help support others, have people support them, ask questions. Really friendly group. I'm the only admin of it, and I've never had to get involved with any kind of complaints or any sort of bullying or negative comments that come on there. So if you are interested, that's a really nice group to join. You can either search Never Told to Lift Workout Accountability Group, or I have put the link to it in the description of this video. But anyway, yeah, this question came in on the group. It's a private group, so I haven't nominalised all the people here. But yeah, the question was, hello, newbie here. I'm quite new on my current journey to change my body. My main struggle is finding the motivation to actually get to the gym. I always overthink it and often talk myself out of going. Any words of wisdom are welcome. So rather than actually initially give my thoughts on this, this was really well contributed to. I think there was about 30 comments that came as a result of this. So I've just picked out some of those comments and I just wanted to share those with you and just expand on those slightly. So the first one that came in was, the mind is always the hardest to convince. Set yourself some small attainable goals and some longer term personal bests. Train your mind to accept the new you. So yeah, I thought this was great advice, because the small attainable goals in the early stages are really important if you can try and start to think of those and find ways that you can get some quick wins along the way to those longer term goals. That it's the longer term goals that people think of initially that think, oh, I want to get to the gym because I want to be healthier and I want this vision of myself. But as you get started, that remains a really distant kind of thought, that it's you'll always feel like you're miles away from that goal. And even if you get closer to it, you'll see what's possible. So you'll kind of create new goals that push you further away, in the same way as like an explorer trying to find the horizon will never quite get there, because they'll always then try and get a bit further. So small goals along the way that you can tick off and it's kind of establish these quick wins is really motivating, and it then starts to make working out really addictive, because you want to then achieve more. And it's a little bit like how computer games work. They tend to work on this model of leveling up. So you might kind of, I don't know, some of them you're going through you're trying to earn experience points, and then once you hit a certain number, you get to level 1, and then once you get the next one, you get to level 2. And they're designed that you reach these early levels quite quickly, so you can kind of build a bit of momentum. And then as you get to kind of, I don't know, level 100, the amount of work needed to get to level 101 is a lot more. And if the same gap from a level 100 to 101 was the same gap for 0 to 1 or 1 to 2, you probably wouldn't sort of stick with it, because it's such a distance. So quick goals along on the way are in the early stages are really important. So that's something that I would work on there. Then next one came in, maybe you need to reframe why you're going to the gym. Sometimes waiting for the results, especially as menopausal women, can take so long, and I know I've lost heart on many occasions. I try to think about keeping myself fit and healthy for my older age, so I can do the things I want to and not relying on the assistance of others. We're all different in what drives us to keep going. So yeah, I think what I liked here was the fact that, again, it's not just about, if you just think about trying to change your body, so the original poster put on her current journey to change her body, if it's only about that, again, as you get closer to what you thought was possible, you'll probably want some other changes, and you'll kind of keep moving the goalposts. So if you also try and think about, if I keep working out to try and change my body, what are some of the other side effects that are going to happen, or say side effects, the positive results that are going to come from this? So I'm going to be fitter, I'm going to be healthier, I'm going to have more energy to play with my grandchildren, I'm going to be able to carry on with the sport that I love doing at the moment, I don't want to give up. And if you start thinking about what your vision of yourself in 10, 20 years is going to be like, and the person you'd like to look like, then it's going to be a lot easier to keep yourself motivated if you can not only change your body and your aesthetics, but also the type of active person you want to be, versus if you don't do it, what's the type of person that you might end up being, because you don't have the energy and the strength to do those things. And again, if you're just looking at changes in the body, like this person says, as menopausal women, particularly in the early stages, it can take a long time to see some of the results. And again, if it's taken a long time, it's a little bit like in that computer game analogy. If it's taken a long time to get to that initial next level, you're probably going to give up with it. Whereas if you can start to monitor some other things that are improving at the same time, you're probably going to stick with the results there. Good. Next one. Consistency is key. When you're tired and don't want to go to the gym, go to the gym. You will feel better afterwards. Don't kill yourself in the gym for a month or two and then have a few weeks off. Lower the intensity and keep going. Don't stop. Just keep it up. So yeah, again, I love that bit about the lower the intensity and keep going, particularly in the early stages, because if you start going to the gym and really try and make things as challenging for yourself as possible and keep trying to progress really quickly to get to the level of other people around you, if everything is new and everything is difficult, it's going to be easier to talk yourself out of going on the days where you don't have much motivation, because you'll find that, because you know it's going to be hard and challenging, you're probably not going to end up going. Whereas in the early stages, if you go, it's going to feel relatively easy by going, then I don't mind. Because initially, the way that I tend to sort of suggest to people is the first few weeks is just establish a routine of going. I don't mind what you do when you're in the gym, just try and get used to the habit of going for 10, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. 2 to 3 times a week. And once you've kind of got that routine established, you can then start to experiment a bit with the things you do in the gym and try and make it a little bit more challenging, or try and use a little bit more resistance. And once you've done that, you can then step it up a little bit more, and then start to try and use weights and resistance where you start pushing the muscles to a bit of fatigue, and then you can start to progress it on from there. Whereas if you jump straight into the far end, not only is there a slight risk of injury, but the real risk is that you're just going to lose motivation, because it's so challenging. You're in a new environment, new people around, you're worried about being judged. It's all of it to take on board at once. If you try and take it all on at once, the chances are you're going to lose and just give up with it. So yeah, lower the intensity, keep going, keep the consistency. You'll never feel, if you go and only do 10 minutes, you'll feel positive for having been. You'll never feel bad for having been. Whereas if you don't go, you're probably going to feel guilt and then feel low as a result of not going. So even if you feel like you can't go, just go with the aim of doing 10 minutes or something like that. Which kind of brings me on to the next one actually, which was, for me, it's about setting out to do something small. E.g., I tell myself I'll nip down the gym for 20 minutes, half an hour, etc., or just do a couple of weightlifting exercises at home. And then when I get there, I have a choice just to do as I planned, or more often than not, I'll do longer. So yeah, she's saying there that it's a bit like telling yourself 10 minutes is, if you said, all I need to do is go to the gym and do 10 minutes, and then I'll come back again, and I can tick off that I did it and that was fine, you've still achieved something. You've gone, you've done some exercise, it's a workout that you can tick off that you've done. The chances are when you get there and you get to 10 minutes, you'll have kind of warmed up into it, you'll feel in the zone, and then you'll do a little bit more, and then you'll probably end up doing 30, 40 minutes. And there's a brilliant book, I've just got it up here. If you've not read it already, I'd really highly recommend reading this book. I put a link to it in the description, but it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he talks about that concept of the first 5 minutes. What is the first 5 minutes that you need to do? And that's all you need to do to tick off to say you've done it. So he used to say when he was writing the book, he would sit down and just aim to do a page. All he had to do was a page that day to tick off to say that he'd done enough that day. But what always happened is once he got to the point, he sat down, because it's easy to sit down thinking you're only going to do a page. And then once he sat down and did that, he found that he was in the zone then, and he would probably write 10, 20, 30 pages, maybe a chapter. Whereas if he set out to do a chapter a day, he probably wouldn't have done it, and he would have talked himself out of sitting down and not feeling like he was in the right mood for it. But all he needed to do was a page to start with. And some days he just would do a page, but most of the time he would do a lot more than that. And it was just that setting that small, very kind of small attainable goal in the first place that was the really positive thing. But again, that book is brilliant if you've not already read it. The other thing he said as well is about decision fatigue, and the more decisions you have to make to get yourself to the gym in the first place on the day is quite hard. So if you actually set out your gym clothes the day before, you pack your gym bag, you've got everything in place, and you've done it all the night before, or you have to wake up, is put your gym clothes on, grab your bag, step out the door. Whereas if you had to again get everything ready in the morning, it seems like more effort, and you're probably going to talk yourself out of it. So that was another tip that I kind of added into that. And then there's one last comment that I just wanted to mention there. So it's look on exercise and an investment in you and your life. Exercise, and especially resistance training, will make you feel good physically and mentally. It's also an activity which can be done all your life. I am 75 and still train most days. It allows you to forget the daily trials and tribulations of your life. Your sole requirement whilst training is to carry out that particular exercise correctly. The value of regular exercise will repay you over and over again. We all feel that sometimes we can't be bothered, but just do it. So again, it comes back to looking at how it's going to affect the future version of you in 10 or 20 years. I did a video recently on the similarities between investing and strength training, and how if you look at strength training as the saving and investing, and the things you enjoy doing as a spending, the earlier you start your investing financially, the more money you have that kind of generates you a bit of an income later on to allow you to keep spending money later in life. So again, the same with strength training. The earlier you can start to kind of establish routine and develop strength and build strength and continue to do that over and over again, it's that whole compounding interest. Is you're going to get a lot more benefit from it now, and that is going to continue to repay you in the future if you continue to stay consistent with it. So yeah, some great advice there. I'd love to actually have anyone watching live, do you have any kind of tips or tricks for motivation that you found really helpful to you? Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, leave it in the comments, because I'm fascinated to hear other kind of little things that resonate with one person might resonate with someone else, and yeah, that's why I found this one really helpful, to just post what other people have said, because they're not all the ones that I would have necessarily thought of in the first place. So yeah, please do comment below if you do have any good tips or anything that's really helped you out with your motivation, and I'll bring those up towards the end of the live stream if anyone's done those live. For now, I'm just going to hide that one and the original question. If anyone is interested in getting started with strength training and they just don't know where to start, then I do have a completely free downloadable ebook if you're interested. So that will help guide you through the process of developing a 12-week program that's going to work for you and your current situation, rather than kind of be a one-size-fits-all where you follow and then find you can't do half the exercises. So if you're interested, do take a look at that. It's nevertoiltolift.com/start-here, or have a look in the description below for the link to that. So next is, here we go. So this morning I had a group call with the members of my Stronger for Life course, and one of the questions that came up in that is, I struggle with my balance during split squats. Do you have any advice? So firstly, for anyone who doesn't know what split squat is, it's a kind of form of a lunge. So let's see if this works, if I can find the right place on this video. So yeah, this is split squat. So I'm kind of in a lunge position, but I don't step into it. I keep my feet in that start position, and I'm just lowering my back knee down to tap the blocks, or eventually down to tap the floor. And I can hold some weight to make that a little bit harder. And if you look from the front there, you can see, and I'm going to pause that actually because that'll bring my point in a second, is my feet. So one of the reasons people struggle with their balance is because if I did a normal squat, my feet would be kind of hip width apart. Whereas some people, when they go into the split squat, they naturally start to kind of have their feet almost in line with each other. So if we think train tracks, if you were to do a squat, you'd have your one foot on each train track in terms of the distance you've got there. Whereas people in split squats tend to, for some reason, want to come in almost as if they're just standing on the one train track, and they tend to then find it harder to balance. So if you look at my feet there, which is harder because I'm all in black and it's a black floor, but although that I now step one foot forward than the other, I'm now still on two train tracks. So I've got some width to my feet, and that will really help to keep the balance there if you do struggle with your balance. Because this person was saying that they're finding that the balance is more the limiting factor than actually reaching muscle fatigue is the limiting factor, which is what we want. We want to try and get to the point where your muscles reach fatigue, so the last repetition is almost the last one you can do. But she found that she kept finding she's losing balance and having to kind of reset herself and start again, and she wasn't quite getting the consistency of repetitions there. So the other bit of advice I had for her was, actually, if you put the weight in one hand, and one thing that does is it creates a bit of an additional challenge there. So actually, because it's trying to pull you down to one side, you have to use the muscles on this side to keep yourself upright. So for one, it creates a nice additional challenge, as well as the split squat. But two, it now gives you a free hand that you can use as a bit of a counterbalance. Whereas if it's down by your side holding the weight in each hand, it's harder to provide a counterbalance with your arms. What you could even do, and I do with some people, is bring in that box that I've got on the side, on my right hand side there. I could bring that into the side, and I could start to just use my fingertips as light support. Just as I feel I'm losing my balance, I can just try and use it to maintain balance. So what I'm not doing is using it to push and help myself up as I get up from that lowest position, but I'm just using it to correct my balance so I don't have to step out of it and then try and reposition my feet to start and back into it. So that's a really useful option. The other option, if it's something you have available to you, which there is a way you can sort of makeshift at home, but the option is having a weight vest on. So at the clinic, I've got one that's got these kind of 0.5 kilogram sandbags that slot into slots all throughout this weight vest on the front and then on the back of it. And I think there's 40 slots, so I can have 20 kilograms of weight on this vest that's now sitting on my body, which now frees up both my arms for counterbalance and having one to tap the side if I need to. If you don't have a weighted vest at the gym, because some of them are those sandbag ones, some of them are a bit more elaborate now, where they've got still the vest, but then they've got almost like a pole that sticks out from the front that you can slot your weight plates onto, and then on the back as well. So that's another option. But if you don't have any kind of weight vest available to you, then a rucksack is really useful. So you can then put some weights or some bottles of water on the rucksack. You can either put it on your back, or some people actually have it, turn it round so it's then kind of around your front, so you can either kind of hold that, or again you've got your arms free to help the balance. But yeah, they're three sort of things I would look at in terms of trying to improve balance, or at least not let balance be the limiting issue in performing split squats. So a reminder, so think train tracks. Rather than try and just stand on one train track, you're going to just have both, one foot on one train track, one on the other train track, so you've got a nice wide stance despite the fact that one is a lot further ahead of the other. Then free up an arm or both arms for counterbalance, and then you could also have that one arm as having a surface just to the side of you to use as light pressure to correct your balance there. Again, if anyone watching has got any tips, or if they also struggle with balance during split squats and they've got any ideas that I haven't mentioned that they think they want to share, then please do use the comments and write those there. And then that just brings me on to one last question that I have prepared. But again, if you do have any questions and you're watching this live, please do use a chat to ask me questions. I'd love to answer that before we leave today. So next one is, does supersetting reduce the time taken to train? So supersetting, for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of this pairing together of exercises. So in the truest sense of what supersetting is, you take one muscle group, perform some exercises on it, so it could be some bicep curls, and then you would take the opposing muscle group, so the triceps, and then you do maybe some pull downs with a rope or some form of tricep exercise, and then you do pair your sets together. So you do first set of bicep curls, then you go straight into your first set of your tricep pull downs, and then you go into your second set of the bicep curls, then second set of tricep pull downs, and so on. And then the theory is the biceps are then getting a rest while the triceps are working, and then we're coming back in and doing that on the biceps again while the triceps are resting, and vice versa. So that's a truer sense, is you're taking one muscle group and then you're training the opposing muscle group. You can apply supersetting, or the word supersetting, or the term, to other forms of pairing. So the one that I tend to use it for is taking, for example, an upper body exercise, and then whilst you're resting after your first set of the upper body exercise, you're then going straight into your lower body exercise, and you're doing a set of that before you then return back to the upper body, then back to lower body. And the theory is because when we're doing training to failure and fatigue, which is what you need to do to build muscle strength, you need to, ideally within 15 repetitions, we need to reach muscle fatigue. And ideally, if we're really trying to get strength, we're going to try and get that closer down to kind of 5 to 6 repetitions over time. But you then need a minute, 2 minutes, if you're really pushing things and you're getting sort of beyond or sort of lower than 5 repetitions as your fatigue point, you might even need 3 minutes to let the muscles rest before starting your second set. Now you could do that. So for going back to, we might do something like a shoulder press. So I might do shoulder press, really fatigue my shoulders, and then I can just sit there and rest and take 2 minutes to just let the shoulders recover before I then go back in, and then I do another set of, say, 12 to 15 shoulder press. Then again, 2 minutes, let that recover, and then do it again. But if I'm doing 3 sets with 2 minutes in between, that's kind of 2 minutes between the first and second, and 2 minutes between the second and third. That's 4 minutes that I've now just been sat there resting. And then if I'm applying that to some more, say 3 more exercises, I'm doing 4 exercises in total. That's a lot, sort of 16 minutes of time, if I've done my maths right there, I think, that I'm just sat not doing anything. And for me, I like to just be efficient with time and get in, do the workout, come back out again. So what you can then do is, rather than rest for 2 minutes and do nothing, whilst my shoulders are recovering, I could go in and do some squats and work my leg muscles. And then I could work those to fatigue. It might not take me the full 2 minutes, so I might still need to rest for a minute or so before I then go and pick up the weights to do my shoulders again, and then push those to fatigue whilst my legs are recovering from their workout. And then I compare those two together in one exercise. And I for anyone getting started, and in the ebook, if you do go to download it, then I suggest 2 pairs of exercises in a workout. So it's 4 exercises, but you're just doing those 2 pairings of, say, shoulder press and squat, and then I might do something like a pull exercise or a seated row, and I'll do something like one of the split squats as my second pairing. And that way you're a lot more efficient with your time. So this person says, to supersetting reduce the time taken to train, then yes, it does, because you're saving that rest time between every set that you do, because you're filling that rest time in with your second exercise. So for a lot of people, I say that's a really good thing to do. I think if you're someone who struggles with fatigue, then you might find that you need the time to rest in between, particularly if strength training is new to you. So any kind of chronic fatigue or just general sort of fatigue that you feel more than others, then I would take the first approach of actually allowing yourself that rest time and just allowing longer for your workouts. If you find it's just really out of breath, and strength training it's surprising, you do get out of breath with strength training. People don't think of it as a cardio-based exercise, but it often is you'll find that if you're going straight from one exercise into the next one, back to the first one, back to the second one, and you don't give yourself any rest at all, most people can manage it, but some people find they just get so out of breath that that's the thing that now limits you, in which sense, so if that is the case, you then want to go back to maybe the first approach of taking a rest in between sets. But for most people, if you're looking to kind of make more efficient use of time in your gym, and the idea of going in for the gym for 20 minutes, again, we come back to some of that motivation. Going for 20 minutes feels a lot easier than having to go for 40 minutes. Then it is really good at helping the motivation side of things as well. The other form of supersetting that you might hear of that some people do is they might do something like bicep curls, push to fatigue or failure, and then straight after that they go into a more of a compound movement. So you're using multiple muscle groups with a focus on the biceps, and then do something like a seated row. So you're really kind of finishing off the biceps at the end of having fatigued them with the bicep curls. Again, as someone new, I wouldn't sort of suggest worrying too much about that side of it. So I wouldn't worry too much about the opposing muscle groups, so the bicep, triceps, because again, for most people getting started, I tend to not necessarily say to avoid isolation exercises where you're just working one muscle at the same time. I tend to focus on more these compound or functional movement patterns where you're training a movement rather than one muscle. So as a result, you work multiple muscles at the same time, which again helps to keep things efficient because you don't have to do as many exercises to reach the whole body. But yeah, the type of supersetting I do suggest is something like that, upper body, or just as long as you might be your shoulders on one and then legs on another, and then it might be trunk rotations on another, and you're just not using the same muscle group with both pairings. You're making sure that the first muscle group isn't heavily involved in the next one in the pair, and vice versa. So hopefully that kind of makes sense there. But if you've got any other questions about supersetting, then please do use the comments to let me know about that. But for the moment, that is it in terms of everything I had prepared in terms of questions. So just as I sum up, if you do have any questions for me whilst we're live, then please do use this opportunity. I'll just quickly remind you of a couple of things. So again, that is completely free Facebook group that you can join there. Come and say hello. We are a really friendly group there. You'll get welcomed into the group, and any questions you have, like I say, you can hear from myself, but also more importantly, you'll hear from others that are either on the same sort of step of the journey, or they're just a few steps ahead, or there are some that are a bit more experienced. But you're going to get advice and help from lots of different levels of people and different personalities that you might resonate with more than just listening to myself. So link is in the description below. If you're interested in that free ebook, then it's nevertoiltolift.com/start-here. And also, if you find that you would rather have a paperback or something that is kind of physical that you can hold, that is available from Amazon. So again, the link's below, or just search Never Too Old to Lift on Amazon. And then lastly, I do have all that content I have in an online course as well called Stronger for Life, which is just a video-based way of going through all that content. But you also get access to me weekly via group calls that might be helpful if you're particularly nervous about getting started or have a lot more questions. But if not, then just keep turning up to these, keep asking questions as you have them. I'd love to be able to help with those. So I think that's it for now. Again, if you have just been watching the recording of this, then please do leave your comments and I will get back to those, and I will see you again at 12 o'clock next Wednesday, which I can't think off the top of my head which date in June will be, but the first Wednesday of June at 12 o'clock I will be back. And then lastly, again, last favour, if you did find any value in anything I said today, please do click the thumbs up button under the video and I will be really appreciative. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.